Keith, you have a podcast on financial freedom. Please tell us the story of the Entrepreneurial Lab show.
The idea of it, the first idea of having a show started when I read the book Traffic Secrets by Russell Brunson. I read 2 of his previous books and I found them really useful. And this particular one was about how to get traffic, how to get your face out there, more exposure, get more people to see you on the internet, to sort of come into, the lower levels of my funnel. So it just made a lot of sense. I mean, at first, I suppose I had a bit of resistance to, I thought, have a show. I'd never really done anything like that. But anyway, so that was an idea I had, and then I sort of put it to one side for a bit, for, I don't know, a few years. Then I happened to come across a blog post by Gary Vee. I don't even remember how I came across it, because I don't normally, those days I didn't normally follow his stuff, but it was about creating content, and it said, don't worry about creating content, just basically document what you do. So in other words, it doesn't have to be super perfect. You don't have this incredible message for the world or anything. You just have to basically talk about your life and what you're doing and what you're getting up to. So that sort of gave me a bit more confidence that it didn't have to be perfect. And then I thought, well, the easiest way of creating content surely is just to sort of start talking to people and having discussions, and especially interviewing other people and finding out about what they do and so on. And so I just found someone on LinkedIn that he sounded quite interesting. He seemed to be have some success in internet marketing, and he had his own show. So I just messaged him and asked him if he wanted to come on my show, and that was the start of my podcast.
That's pretty cool. I like the learning here. I like the fact that to start a podcast, it doesn't need to be perfect. What you need is just wanting to do a podcast and wanting to give value to the world. Sounds a bit dramatic, but it literally is, right? And I like this advice from Gary Vee. It's literally, actually, that's how we started with Sam as well. Our very first podcast is just documenting our learning in a niche in finance, in corporate treasury, and like documenting your life can just be the whole podcast. And then you start interviewing people about the very topics you document, and you get insights, and you provide value, and you give access to those guests and audience, but you also give the audience access to an amazing guest. And it's like win, win, win. I like that a lot. So you wanted to create traffic. So usually the way we work in those episodes, Keith, is we talk about the podcast, the business, how to link the two together. I feel here is going to be very interdependent, so we can talk about both at the same time. We say create traffic. Why did you want to create traffic in the first place?
Well, I was basically trying to make money on the internet, and all my experience to date, all my knowledge, and provide service. I can help people. I can show people what I know how to do, and I can do things for them. So I know that I can help a lot of people. But difficulty is, it's no use me knowing all this stuff, sitting at home, not connecting with people. I need to get the word out. Obviously, you can spend a fortune in ads, but it seemed a much better idea just to get organic traffic by talking to people. And also, as well as communicating my knowledge and expertise, also gets people get a bit of a sense of me and my personality. Do they want to work with me or not? So that was part of it as well.
I like that. And the fact you point out ad stuff, that's so true. And it works. I mean, ads can work, right? When you get in the back stages of it, you understand that most of the companies actually lose money in ads, Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, Google ads, whatever, because it needs to be done properly, but also with a certain strategy in place, right? And at the end of the day, now lots of people do it. The advantage of podcasts is that you actually get to link with people in your industry, have authentic conversations, create value for an audience organically for free. You can repurpose all that content, get even more content. You have a pretty decent TikTok in place, Keith. We're gonna come to it in a second. But with a podcast, you create genuinely good and valuable content out there for free, allowing you to develop your brand And then down from that, once you had one touch point, two touch points with somebody who doesn't know you in the first place, but ends up knowing you, and then they listen to an episode, and then they go on your website, you've provided them so much value even before they got on your website that this is how you actually get sale, because that's how it works. People buy from people, not from companies, and ads works less well in that sense. Creating traffic. How did the podcast achieve that for you, Keith? Get us into the nitty-gritty. Like, you connected with people in the industry, you got it distributed on different platforms. How did that work out for you?
So yeah, I put the idea was to repurpose it. So I put it on. So I thought some people just do an audio podcast, and some people just do a blog where they talk to people. But I thought I'll start with video, and then I can repurpose that as audio and transcribe it as well if I wanted. So that seemed to be the best way of doing it. So I put it on YouTube, Facebook, and then I put it on my website as well. Actually, they were probably the only three places. Oh, and also I put it on anchor.fm, which distributed it to all the podcast aggregators and iPhone podcasts and so on. So that's been taken over by Spotify now. So I got it out on many places. So I think it just helps in general with my personal brand. And people they might see me, for example, might come across me on YouTube, then they might sort of come across me, or maybe they prefer to consume their content by audio, so then they might sort of look me up on podcast or something like that. So it's not like become like in the top 10 podcasts or anything, so I can't say I've had a lot of people I know specifically came from doing this. It's more a case of just getting myself out there. And the other aspect of it is there will be some bits which will be best quality than others, and those bits there could be some bits which are more viral and more interesting, and those bits then I can actually clip and I can put ad spend behind that as well. So that's another idea that I'm going to do in the future.
Very cool. Makes sense, right? That's the proper strategy that needs to be put in place in order to use your content to the best of their ability. So, Keith, when it comes to actually what you're proposing, because if I look at TikTok, your name is the UK CFO. If I scroll to the different episodes of your podcast, you're talking to a lot of people about how to achieve financial freedom. And I feel there is a lot of not real estate management, but more like short-term renting and this kind of way to achieve financial freedom. What do you talk about on your podcast? Who do you interview, and what do you actually talk about?
Okay, so this has changed a bit over the evolution of the podcast. So when it started out, I was more involved in sort of making money on the internet in different ways, because I've been starting my own internet businesses, making money for myself, and also trying to communicate this and help other people do that. So it started off as a sort of internet marketing show, and I'd always sort of grill people about how they did their marketing. Then at some point I got into, I've been in property for many years, so then I thought, let's start talking about property with various property experts and enhance my personal brand in that area as well. So I think I did about 4 or 5 in that area, which was very interesting. But more recently, in the last year or two, I've gone back into the world of accountancy, which is where I started, because I trained as a chartered accountant at Deloitte, and I worked in industry as a financial controller and chief financial officer for large companies. So I've decided this is sort of the best way I can help people, by putting all that knowledge together with my internet marketing knowledge to promote myself, so I can be a fractional CFO where I can help small businesses who can hire me part-time and so on. So this is where I want to go forward. So, but on the other hand, I've listened to a lot of these sort of CFO type podcasts, and a lot of them seem quite boring, because they're really just about people's careers, and they seem very promotional. So I think it's got to be about business. It's got to be about how to make money, how to grow your business, how to maybe acquire businesses, how to sell businesses, how to keep a handle on the numbers and so on, because a lot of people don't really have a clue about their numbers. They just download the bank statements and have a gut feeling that things are going okay, but they may not be if you don't measure it.
I like that. I like that there is like the Keith branding. Like it's not just about property. It's not just about being a fractional CFO. It's not just about entrepreneurship or selling a business. Not just about financial freedom. It's a bit of there is a recurring theme, which seems to be money, obviously. And it's just like you bring your own touch on each of those topics, and you educate and inspire people in that very angle that you have, which is touching upon those several niches, right? And as you said, there is an evolution, which is also very interesting, right? One of our first show with Usam as well, where we started, it was just him and I. It was him asking me questions, and we're just talking about the basics of corporate finance. And then 6 months in, we start interviewing people, and we interview people who know so much and have such an interesting knowledge. So we have to step up our game and ask relevant questions whilst maintaining the one-on-one aspect of our podcast. So I like that there is an evolution, and it's a living thing, right? A podcast. It's literally you grow with it, it grows with you. And in order to always renew and always propose good and qualitative content, you also sometimes need to rethink a bit what you propose and how you propose it. I love that a lot. But so tell us a bit more about your business then, Keith. What do you do and how do you help people in your services?
Okay. So a lot of SMEs, they grew from when they were a lot smaller. When they were a lot smaller, maybe it was just a one-man band or a few people, and they didn't really bother with accounts. Maybe they just downloaded the bank statement into Xero every month. Maybe they didn't really understand or focus on the P&L balance sheet. And then as they grew, they didn't really, a lot of business owners obviously try and save money. It's very important, but they, when they save money, and also they look at accounting as an overhead because it doesn't directly make them more money. So people have different ideas about the value of accounting services, and also so they think most people they think in terms of a bookkeeper who basically just deals with the day-to-day sort of down in the bank statements, paying people, doing the sort of bare minimum at a sort of low level, and then once a year they take it to their accountant as such, who files the company returns and tax returns. And they're not really big enough to have a sort of proper full-time accountant working for them. So, but and a lot of them grow towards a stage where they do need, or that expertise would be extremely useful, but they sort of carry on just with a bookkeeper because you don't know what you don't know type thing. So what I do is, this is sort of the same thing I was doing when I was CFO for a 30 million or 50 million turnover company, which I make sure that there's a proper monthly reporting pack, which correctly shows their accounting position for the month, how much money they've earned in a month. And the reason most people or many people don't know that is because they don't do a proper cut-off. They have timing differences. So they have sales in February and cost of sales in January, and they don't match them off. So if you look at their P&L in Xero, it can go all over the place, and that's just because of timing differences. So an important thing that most people need to do is to do a proper cut-off every month and think, well, this money I spent, which month does it match against the sales, and do journals to put it in the correct month. So that's the important part I want to do. And the other part is, normally in Xero you just get all these numbers, which people I don't really understand, or there's so many numbers, they don't know which are the important ones, apart from the bank balance. So what I do is I track various KPIs in graph format, which the big four are sales, GP percentage, and expenses, because those three together give you your net profit. And then the other one is cash, and that's to do with keeping things liquid and keeping the wealth that's stored in the assets of your company down into cash. So they're the four figures that I track, and also compare them against last year, also against budgets and forecasts. So by doing that and putting all in graph format and doing various other ratios, it helps you really get a handle what's going on with your business.
You're not only doing podcasts when it comes to creating content around this place, Keith. I've seen you on, was it what, CNN? Is it on Sky? Wait, let me see it. BBC, sorry, Sky News.
Well, Sky News, yeah. And the BBC ones as well, yeah.
You have a pretty good TikTok going on. We'll put the link in the description. So you have a very broad content strategy, which is amazing and which we don't see enough in this space, I think. So we are more on our first podcast, we're more into the corporate treasury, so like $1 billion plus companies. But like even in small companies, people are excellent at doing the job, but they do not advertise it. You clearly have nailed how to advocate and like advertise what you do and how you do it. So what is this? Like, is appearing on Sky News, BBC, having a proper TikTok channel, all part of this content strategy to create traffic? What's the intention behind it?
Well, getting on Sky News was sort of luck more than anything.
Okay.
They just phoned me up at a bit of publicity. First I was in the papers, in the Times, and then it got picked up by BBC and then Sky News. That's been fantastic for my reputation and brand. And then TikTok was, so the idea of, doing shows. Now, the shows I was doing, the podcasts, it was more me talking, me asking other people things like you're asking me. So more I was enhancing their brand rather than actually my own, because I was just the interviewer. So that's where I realised that I had to actually produce content talking about my area of expertise. So then I started with this CFO channel. Originally I started talking about tax. I was working with other tax accountants, and I still am, because I felt this was a massive area where people can save a lot of money if they structure their affairs properly in a more tax efficient way, especially property investors. So that's where I think when I first started my TikTok channel, then I moved into just helping small business owners by talking about how to, well, not only the actual accounts, how to do accounting properly, but more about how to make your business more healthy, how to grow, how to decrease costs, how to reduce risk, and that sort of thing.
You know, I love that the most viewed video on TikTok has reached like 1,600,000 views. Like, guys, go and check it out. It's UK CFO, simple as that, 5 letters. The most viewed video ever has 1,600,000, and you explain how not to give a HMRC, so it's like Her Majesty Resident Custom for the people listening us outside of the UK. It's basically the tax institute, right, in the UK. How not to give them a good reason to investigate you. So I love that hook. We are really strong in all the content repurposing we do for ourselves and our clients. On social media, especially on short form content, probably the most important thing is the hook. Like, what's the first 3 seconds of your video? Because from that, people are going to be like either swiping or either like, oh, I'm hooked. I need to look this video. I need to watch it. I need to understand what's in it. The hook in this one is, do not give HMRC a red flag to investigate you. So is that part of your strategy, Keith? Do you do that willingly, or are you just, which would be fine, by the way, but is it, you seem to have nailed the code of TikTok. How do you nail those codes when you make the link with podcasts? Like, what's your take on it?
Okay, so a strong hook is very important. And as you say, the first few seconds is vital. I mean, I know when I'm scrolling through TikTok, they're literally, the first 1 or 2 seconds, that's as long as they've got to get me interested. And also, if I look at the analytics, you can see the graph in the first 2 seconds, it normally sort of plummets straight down as you see people scrolling away. So a strong hook's essential, one based on curiosity, or in this case, I suppose fear. It's evoking the idea, oh yes, the HMRC are after you, they're coming to get you, what can you do about it, type thing. Even if people are obviously, a vast majority are totally innocent and, haven't done anything wrong, but there's still an element of, oh my God, they go after me. Yeah, it is. But I think it's trial and error, because I have tried many times to have to replicate that success, but I haven't. But that particular one did. And I think also I know the reason for that is to do with the algorithm, is the number of comments. And that one got a massive amount of comments. And if you read through, the reason is because people are making they make the same joke over and over, which is, oh, I'm not worried about that. I don't pay any tax. I'm a Conservative MP.
Even better.
Yeah, so I just hit gold with that one, really.
But so I love that. Let's spend a bit of time on it, Keith. Let me pick your brain on TikTok, because one of the main things we advocate for in podcasting is like you can actually generate leads with it. The podcast content is just a content repurposing machine, and if done properly with the right system, you can generate leads for your business. On top of having all the nice qualitative benefits, right? On top of having the nice branding, the connection with the industry, and so on. For B2B podcast stories, for instance, we extract 90 pieces of content out of each and every episode, and we publish that on all the social media platforms. And we get in the high dozens of thousands of views across all platforms, although the podcast is only 3 months, because we do this with the right intention behind it, providing value, and with the right system to direct that traffic towards our website where people can discover our services and opt in and so on. My point here is this wouldn't work if we wouldn't nail properly the code of each platforms, right? Because we need to be able to say, okay, these snippets of less than 30 seconds that we've just extracted from the episode where Keith explains the 4 pillars of Fractional CFO for small businesses. How do we put the right hook in it? How do we make sure that it retains attention all the way through? How do we make sure even people watch it a second time to even boost the algorithm further? We need to focus on value, and it's all about proper video editing, proper audio editing, and picking out the right snippets, right? But just with one episode of 45, 60 minutes, let's see how long this one lasts, you can have so much nuggets of knowledge that you can post on all the social media platforms. And TikTok is exactly this. TikTok, you can provide value. There is an audience for everybody there. There is actually an interesting graph about the curve of the average age of TikTok users. And actually, yes, the 13 to 18 is the biggest, but it's like 23% of TikTok users, I think. And the rest, you have like second category, 18 to 25, 23, and then you have 25 to 35, 20, 22, something like this. It's really close to each other. So there is an audience for everybody as long as it's done right. How do you hack TikTok, Keith? That's my question to you.
I think I just put a load of stuff out there and
Quantity?
Yeah.
Is that it?
I mean, yeah. I mean, I can't do the perfect TikTok. If I could, I'd be rich. But if you put enough stuff out there, some of it is going to take off. So I just let the algorithm sort itself out. And also, I mean, like you mentioned, I think many people think, oh, it's only sort of teenage girls who watch TikTok type thing. I mean, that's what it can seem like sometimes. But but one really good contact I made recently, he had he's got a 30 million turnover company, and he's in his 60s. And I was sort of quite surprised he'd been watching TikTok. But actually, his company has an e-commerce store. And he himself advertises on TikTok, so he was looking at it for that reason. So that's how he came across me.
So it's not that it should be quantity over quality, but definitely quantity and quality.
Well, you do your best with quality, yes, but you can't guarantee to be get 100% quality every time.
Yeah, and there is this interesting experiment that they run in the photography school, where the intention is, okay, how can we get the best photographers out of this lesson? Do you know it, Keith? Have you heard of it?
Well, no, but I know how my niece got married a few years ago, and I saw all the photos her wedding photographer took. Hundreds or thousands of them. So it's the same principle.
Exactly, and that's the point. And so they have a group of students who they say, okay, guys, you can only submit one picture at the end of the year, so you can only take one. It needs to be perfect. Take the best picture you can. And to another group, they say, like, take as many pictures as you want. Like, really take as many pictures, thousands, dozens of thousands if needed. And at the end of the year, what happens is that the people who have practiced for like 10,000 photo taking, obviously much better and happen to produce a much better photo on average than the ones that need to take the one perfectly. And actually, they have a few others that are excellent pictures as well, because quantity and iteration and learning, I think you mentioned that curve of like, when you look at the analytics of the TikTok video, you see that people drop after 3 seconds. It's an excellent exercise that we do every week at GHA Marketing, literally for our content, but also our clients. We're like, okay, when did people drop? Okay, we have this short that did 10,000 views and this short that did 200. What's the difference? When did people drop? Is it because we added a special effect, or is it because we didn't add a special effect? How was our hook? Should we have put a B-roll here? Like putting quantity out there, but then learning from it, right? It's also about, hey, we put all that, and then we need to learn from it, and then focus on what works. And typically what you've done with this 1.6 million views is typically this: the hook is perfect. And then there is genuine value in the short, because it all comes out to good content as well. Awesome. I like that a lot. How have you seen the effects of podcasting on traffic then, Keith? Have you seen any benefits for your business, or actually vice versa, of like this whole content strategy and more particularly the podcast?
Okay. So my podcasts up until now have been me interviewing other people. So I think there've been one or two that got a lot more traffic than the others. So I've never been able to predict which ones get more traffic than others. It is just sort of, it might depend a bit on their following, but I felt it in terms of traffic, none of them have really got significant traffic, but I think it's good to have in the background because people go on my site, then they look at all the videos, they look at all the conversations I have with people, and they realise that, and they get a sense of me, and they realise that, I'm talking to all these people, I'm a normal person, I'm very approachable, they get a sense of what it'd be like to pick up the phone and have a chat with me about their business, for example. So I think it's useful from that point of view. And what I think is more useful going forward is what I'm doing now is to go on other people's podcasts and also have them on my show, sort of do a swap, because you're coming on my show as well quite soon. So that was going to be interesting. And then I can get a chance to grill you. So
looking forward to that.
Yeah, so this is a first for me. This is the first time I've been on someone else's podcast. So I think it's going to be it's a fantastic experience for myself, just because it's anything you do for the first time is always good, but also be useful to get that sort of content as well I can use.
So what's your advice for podcasters then, Keith? Because you're up 35 episodes already, I think. So you've done quite some, and that means as many interviews, right? Which is not nothing. It's like dozens and dozens of hours with thought leaders and with people who provide genuinely good advice to your audience. What's the learning from it? Let's maybe start simple. What's the biggest challenge you've faced when doing podcast?
I don't really think, no. I mean, the only thing is it sort of takes up a bit of time. I mean, all that time that I spent doing podcasts, I could have been out, doing something else. That's the main downside for me. It hasn't cost me any money as such, really, because it's all pretty much free, apart from a little amount in different types of software. So, and also it's another useful thing for me has been, I just had a lot of really interesting conversations because I've always picked people I thought I could learn something from, and I've been sort of grilling them, finding out things. So is in a way, it's sort of, you could look at it as sort of free consultancy for me. So it's got a lot of upsides as well.
No, makes sense. And so what's your advice then? Because challenges not so much, which is good to hear. You're the first one actually telling us that there was no challenge in the podcast. But so, for instance, if we take the post production, is it something you do yourself, for instance?
Well, I don't really do. I mean, I think I should do. But yeah, normally I just upload it if it's and I think I should do post production. And I think you mentioned creating lots of snippets. So that's something I know you can do that with AI. There's services that will do that automatically. So that's, definitely something I'm going to start doing. I also do have a virtual assistant in the Philippines who's excellent, and she can help with post-production as well. So I would say if you want advice, I'd say just do it. And I think the hardest one to do was the first one, because there was a bit of, I suppose, anxiety or, is it going to be a disaster type thing? And then, but if you just do it, I mean, there's not really very much that can go wrong, to be honest.
So shout out to your VA in the Philippines then. Let me challenge a bit the short form content via AI. And I mean, for sure it's worth a try. And we did a few as well. What we've seen though, so it works in the sense that it will take a whole episode. It will get you in seconds 12 snippets We'll add pretty decent subtitles as well. Oftentimes what it does is that it puts the two cameras, right? One above and one below of the speaker and the guest, of the two speakers, basically. The problem with AI in that particular aspect that we've seen is you don't really get to see good snippets. Well, again, quantity is key. So if the AI proposes you 5 snippets, maybe 2 or 3 will be of good moments. But then it doesn't really nail the hook. It doesn't really nail the animations. And there is no additional audio and video editing that is done via those platforms. Now, it's a good 80-20. It's a good way to start doing it. Why am I pointing that out? If you can do it, if anybody can do it that easily, which is the case, there is tons and tons of content that is out there exactly similar to this. The issue with that is you don't differentiate anymore. So you get some content out there for sure, you get the quantity aspect, but you don't get to learn a lot and to iterate because it's just the AI doing it anyways. And on top of that, you are not competitive anymore. So it takes a bit more work actually in the short form content from podcast, and you know about it from TikTok, Keith, but it takes a bit of work to do a proper post-production on a podcast short to get it to have the impact you want it to have. That being said, it's worth a try. So whoever is listening to this right now, and Keith, you want to implement this right now, have a go at it because it's definitely worthwhile seeing, okay, do I get the results that I want out of it? You will get content, that's for sure. If you want to take it to the next step in the sense of getting views, getting people to react, getting people to engage, it's interesting to see how, for instance, you can do it yourself as you do for TikTok. And there is a different touch because you know what to pick up, you know how to edit, you know how to add the different stuff on top of it and the proper subtitles. So it's an interesting way to see to look at it. That's it. Offering my take on short form content from podcasting, but makes sense. Okay, so post-production makes sense. What would be your advice for podcasters, Keith?
Just do it.
Mind elaborating on it?
Okay. Well, just do it to get started. I suppose, you could just do one. You could just do ones you're interested in, which would be like sort of hobby type podcast, which is fine. I think it's a fantastic way to spend your free time. But I imagine most people might be interested in monetizing it some way. So then you have to then look at your audience who you're trying to reach and then try and create content that's of interest to them. So maybe, just try and put yourself in their shoes and imagine what sort of podcasts they listen to, and then you could speak to those types of people. I know for myself, when I listen to podcasts, I find it quite boring if it's just one person doing a monologue. So there's something about having 2 people or more that just makes it just more interesting and engaging. And probably my favourite podcasts are really where you see 2 people who just get on really well together, like 2 good friends, and they just sort of bounce off each other, and maybe they could together just explore a topic together, or they could interview a person together. I think that's a fantastic format, and I think that'd be a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, 100%. That's so we have a client recently who told us, guys, so they have 5 hosts in total for the show. And they have a kind of rotation. It allows them actually to interview much more and produce much more, but also being able to say, look, we don't need to be 4 hosts in an interview. 1, maximum 2 suffices. So it also offers rotation. Not everybody has to jump into a recording every week. And it allows to tap into different networks as well. Each has its personal branding. It compounds on it. So it's not an addition, it's actually a multiplication. And recently what they told us is that, you know what, we actually, so the episode, the podcast is doing well, the episodes are doing well. We've noticed that people stick around much more, much longer, and we get much more views when it's just the 4 of us. And I'm going to quote, talking shit in the sense of being 4 buddies, talking about the topic of the very podcast and providing value, but also being much more at ease. There is no interview format. It's most like people who know them, who know each other, And there is a huge complicity in it. And he told me, but so those episodes work much more. I was like, well, do more of them because that's what people like to hear. So indeed, podcast is amazing to network with your peers in the industry because you get to reach out to people and say, hey, come on my show, rather than, hey, let's go for a coffee. It's like offering the opportunity to be seen as a thought leader, spending valuable time, providing value to the audience. So it's amazing to network and amazing to open doors. when it comes to people listening to it, sometimes it's also worthwhile just sitting down with friends and having a insightful and funny conversation about that very topic. So definitely, I like what you said here, Keith. It can be interviewing people, but it can also be being two buddies talking about a topic. As a matter of fact, that's how we started on Corporate Treasury 101. Hussam and I, we were just talking, we were good friends, and we were talking about Corporate Treasury 101, and we had our little jokes, our little theme that we had to give a pod when we started interviewing big time people in the industry. But it's definitely worthwhile, definitely worth giving it a shot. And to bounce a bit on, to follow up a bit on what you said about just do it, literally, like just do it. There is this amazing stat, which is 90% of podcasts don't make it past episode 3. And of those who do, 90% don't make it past episode 21. So like the barrier to entry is that low. Meaning if you manage to get 3 episodes out, you're top 10% podcast all time. And if you make it past episode 21, you're top 1% all time. That's crazy. So now you still need to build an audience and make the most out of this podcast. But like, it's that easy. Like it has never been as easy as it is today to start a podcast and then like keep going for 22 episodes and you have a top 1% podcast all time. So definitely just do it. You don't need a like heavy, expensive equipment to begin with. You don't need the amazing guests. Just sit down, record a podcast, get it out there and make the most out of it. Because even if you just record yourself talking about XYZ topic for 30 minutes, then you can extract all those amazing information and make 3 TikTok videos and 2 shorts. And maybe you'll be as successful as Keith and get 600,000 views on TikTok. And if not, that's fine. Because if you do it 20 times, if you do it over and over again, eventually you get there. So I like that a lot, Keith. Just do it. And whatever format pleases you, just go for it. And you can iterate on it, right? It's just an unlimited learning curve. Keith, anything we didn't touch upon in this episode that you'd like to bring to the attention of our audience?
No, I think we've explored everything I can think of at the moment anyway.
Amazing. Keith, thank you so much for coming on the show. If people want to find out more about you, where should they go?
Redboxfinancial.com.
Redboxfinancial.com. We'll put the link to the website.
Or they could just Google my name, Keith Griggs.
That works as well. We'll put all the links in the description. Keith, thank you so much. Cheers.
Thank you too. Bye.